They say the fat lady's singing.
Music to my ears. Okay, Erev Tov, everyone. So we're at the close of Yom HaShoah. It's mentioned, I saw a video this morning, which was very, very powerful. You may have seen in one of the hospitals in Ashdod, I believe it was, there was a baby that was born at the exact moment of the sefira, of the siren. So there's a video of, you can see the medical staff standing there, everybody's standing, at attention because of the siren, and you can hear at the same moment the siren which is blaring and the cry of the newborn baby. And it's that is our victory. That is our victory. Tonight's Torah, I thought I'll begin maybe with a trivia question, which is, when is it, not on Tisha B'Av, but when is there a time when one is not allowed to read a particular siman from the Shulchan Aruch? And the answer is tonight. Okay, and what am I talking about? So if you have a look in Siman Taf Peitet, I'm going to skip the part which I just said. You'll see in a moment. Siman Taf Peitet, which tells us about Sfirat HaOmer, about counting. Right, we always have to be careful. That's why we always announce. We say, last night we counted such and such, because if one counts the night and counts what night of the Omer it is, so then we have a safek whether we can say the bracha afterwards. Because if we've already counted, we've already had in mind to count, so then we can no longer say the bracha because we fulfilled the mitzvah. So the Shulchan Aruch tells us, it's Belel Sheni Achal Tfilat Arvit, referring to Belel Sheni of Pesach, that's when we begin counting. Matchilin Esfor Sfirat HaOmer, Ve'im Shachach Lespor B'tchilat Halayla, Olech V'stoper Kol Halayla. Right, so one should count at the beginning of the night, after nightfall, if one forgot, one can count the entire night. Mitzvah Kol Echad Lespor Be'atzmo, every individual should count for themselves. Tzarich Lespor Mu'umad U'Levorech Tchila. Right, we count standing up and we say the bracha first. V'sofer hayamim v'shavuot. We count the days and we count the weeks. Ketzad. So how do we count? So says the Shulchan Aruch gives us examples. B'yom ha'rishon. Now it's printed in the siddur, so it's easy. But Ketzad b'yom ha'rishon omer hayom yom echad ba'omer ad shemagia l'shiva yamim. So for the first 7 days you're counting. Today is such and such of the omer. Once you get to 7 days, az yomar hayom shiva yamim shem shavua echad ba'omer. Don't worry, I can still say that because that's not tonight, right? You can count 7 days, which is 1 week. Uvayom shmini, and on the 8th day counts Yomal Hayom Shmona Yamim Shem Shavua Echad Yom Echad Ba'omer. V'chen ad sheyagia. I'm going to stop there. But he says then until you get to a particular night, and on that particular night, which is tonight, you can work it out. You would count. You would say it's such and such days, which is such and such weeks of the Omer. So that is. I'm being very, very careful not to read the siman yet. But after we've counted the Omer, then we can go and we can say it. So that is the example. That would be the case where one has to be careful not to read the words of the Shulchan Aruch until we have counted the night and fulfilled the mitzvah. It may be that when one reads, one does not have intent, right, to fulfill the mitzvah, and therefore it's still okay. But it's at least a safek, and therefore we would. You don't think it's a safek? Okay.
Yeah. No intention to be guilty.
So there's a question throughout Shas. We have a question of whether mitzvot tzrichot kavanah. We have another question whether you can have negative kavanah. Okay, yeah, you're saying the thing, you're fulfilling the mitzvah. Right.
What's the mitzvah? To say the words or to count?
It's to count. But when you're saying the words, okay. So, but when you're saying the words, you're counting.
Yes, but if you've already heard and you know that you counted the day, somebody told you it's the 4th, so whatever.
Are you saying if you count in your head without saying the words, have you fulfilled the mitzvah? No. You have to say it. But once you've said it, Sfirat HaOmer nowadays is probably is the Rabbanan in any event. But in any event, all the poskim are choshesh for this. So okay, whatever we can discuss. But that's an interesting point. But that's why we're careful. We don't say tonight is whatever. We say last night we counted 13. Sorry, Chanya. Now I always have this at home. Sometimes my wife asks me, what should we count tonight? So if I've come home and I've already counted in Maariv, so I'll say tonight we count such. And she says to me, no, that sounds wrong. Tell me what we counted last night, and then we'll count. But in any event, so there are a number of questions which come up every year. What happens if somebody forgot to count? What happens if somebody can't remember if they counted? Can you count in the day or not? Etc. And a lot of this boils down to the pasuk. The pasuk that tells us to count. Those who say the hineni muchan muzuman, if you say it or you sing it, so you have the pasuk there, and it says 7 complete weeks. We count 7 complete weeks. So much ink has been spilled over the generations, over that word, Tamimot. What does it mean, Sheva Shabbatot, Tamimot? The Torah could easily have said, count 7 weeks. It doesn't say that, they'll count 7 complete weeks. So there are at least 3 different interpretations, all of which have their own halachic ramifications based on what this word of Tamimot means. One of them, maybe the most famous, is that when we get to Shavuot, right, we're still quite a while away, but not so far away, but in a number of weeks' time. So Sheva Shabbatot Tamimot Tiena. So there are those who say that since it has to be 7 complete weeks, therefore when we get to the night of Shavuot, before we can count we can daven Maariv, obviously on Shavuot, which is the 50th day, we don't count. The way we count the 50th day is by not counting it, because the number 50 is that which is beyond, and it's beyond the count. But so we'd have to wait until after nightfall. Right here, we have the minhag to have a early minyan for Shabbos. Normally, we don't have an early minyan on Chag for various reasons. Different Chagim, we can't really have the early minyan. This year we had on Shvi Shel Pesach, we had the early minyan for Chag, and that caused a bit of controversy, but there's no reason why you can't. But the first night of Pesach, you have to wait until nightfall. Right? And Shavuot, you would also have to wait until nightfall in order to fulfill Shabbatot Tamimot Tiena. The truth is that there are discussions in the poskim, particularly in places where it gets dark very, very late at night, more northern places. And if you're going to wait until nightfall before you start davening and before you start eating and before you know it, Tikkun El Shavuot is over before it's even begun. And there are in extenuating circumstances, there are reasons and there are svarot to say that one is not required to wait. But in any event, that is one interpretation of Shabbatot Tamimot. Then when it comes to the 7 weeks need to be complete, and therefore Shavuot can only begin after nightfall. There is another understanding, and this is the understanding of the Bahag. Again, not necessarily mutually exclusive, but a different interpretation. What does it mean, Shabbatot Tamimot? Tamimot means that it has to be a complete count. In other words, when I'm counting the 49 days, I need to count every single one of the 49 days. If I miss a day or more, so then I'm not counting, it's not complete. And therefore, says the Bahag, that if you missed a day, there's any particular day, the first day, the last day, the 27th day, it doesn't matter. But if you missed any of the days counting of the Omer, subsequent days, you would not be able to count. It has to be Tamimot, it has to be a complete count in order to fulfill the mitzvah. Therefore, you need to count each and every single day. And therefore, if you missed one, you can no longer, according to the Bahag, you can no longer count. Now,
You mustn't, so you shouldn't count with the rock. It doesn't count.
Okay. So according to the Bahag, which is the opinion of the Rishonim, if you've missed a day, you're no longer in the game. You can't count anymore. You can't fulfill the mitzvah. It's generally accepted. What? Because of the word Tamimot, yeah. Now it's understood by a lot. It's often explained that the way that the Bahag interprets is that it's all one mitzvah, and if you missed any components of it, you have not fulfilled that mitzvah. The difficulty with that understanding is if it's all one mitzvah, how come we say 49 different brachot, right? And there may be other ways of understanding the Bahag, but certainly that is the psak that you would no longer count. Now we don't hold, Tosfot rejects Bahag completely, and that many of the Rishonim reject this completely, which means according to many of the Rishonim, if you missed a day, you could carry on counting the next day. Each day stands by its own. So you could count the next day with a bracha. Okay, so these are the two extreme views. There is the extreme view. On one extreme, we have the Bahag who says, you missed a day, you don't count at all. Tosfot and other Rishonim who say, if you missed a day, it's irrelevant. You carry on counting with a bracha. What we do is in between. What we do is a compromised position between the two. And this is the point. Sometimes people think, see, not yet, none of you made this mistake, but sometimes people think, you missed a day, so you're out. You're out of the count, you're not counting anymore. That's completely incorrect. That is not what the Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch says, in Siman Taf Peitet, Seif Zayin, I have no problem reading this one tonight, he says, Shachach v'lo birech kol halayla, if a person forgot and did not say the bracha, and therefore and did not count the entire night, he doesn't say you no longer, right? He says yispor bayom b'lo bracha. So you would count the next day without a bracha. In other words, the fact is you would still carry on counting, just you wouldn't be able to. We'll get to that particular case soon, but you wouldn't be able to say with a bracha. As I say, according to most of the Rishonim, you could still count with a bracha. It's actually strange that we take into account the dat miut, it's the bahag, it's the one lone opinion in the Rishonim, but nonetheless, because we are concerned for a bracha levatala, therefore we say we would no longer count, we would no longer say a bracha, but you would continue counting each night.
With the rabbi's bracha.
Yes.
And then so then he's back in.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that let's say I haven't gotten to counting the day yet, but let's say, okay, one night a person forgot to count, and they only remembered right the next night at Sefira Omer. They came to Maariv. Let's say it was Friday night. You came to the early minyan. The Gabbai said before Aleinu, said, "Don't forget to count. Last night we counted such and such. Go home and count." You said, "Okay, I'll go home and I'll count." And what happened? You went home. You had the chicken soup. You had whatever. You fell asleep. The next day you wake up. You didn't think about it. You come to Maariv of Motzei Shabbat, and they count Sefira Omer, and you think, we forgot last night. So you've missed a day, completely missed a day. So you aren't allowed to stop counting now. You still have to keep counting every night, but you've lost the ability to say the bracha. So if you're in shul with a rabbi or whoever else is saying the bracha, you would say amen. You would have in mind that's how you would fulfill the bracha, but you can still count for yourself. Okay, that is the case of. So that is, yeah.
That's on the assumption that each day is separate mitzvah.
That is one understanding. That is one understanding of it. Many bring it down that way, and again, as I say, the obvious difficulty with that is that that you're saying no, excuse me, opposite. If the assumption that each day is a separate mitzvah, so then I would think that I could say the bracha every day, right? The way many say that according to the Bahag, it's all one mitzvah with 49 components. Now it may not be dependent on that. You may be able to say, according to Bahag, according to everybody, each day is its own bracha, each day is its own mitzvah. But what's the point? The point is you're counting, right? How do you count? You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't count 1, 2, 3, 5. I'm not counting. If I missed a day, then I'm no longer in the count. Okay, so that is a second way of understanding Timimot, and that is one machloket we have between Bahag and the other Rishonim when it comes to Sefira Omer. There's a third understanding of Timimot, and this is more or less the understanding of Tosfot. That when we said, the first way we said that Timimot means it has to be a complete count, refers to all 49 days, all 7 weeks. But maybe it refers to not the entire period, but it refers to each of the days. Each of the days that I'm counting of those 7 weeks has to be complete. The nafkamina is that I would have to count at night, and I'm not allowed to count during the day. Okay. Now you can argue at what point in the night do I have to count at the earliest possible or later or whatever. But generally we say that the unit of the day that I'm counting goes from nightfall to nightfall, and therefore the count has to be at night rather than during the day. And so that is what we assume, that one has to count at night, and one cannot count during the day. However, there is an opinion that says that if you could count during the day. That's the Bahag. He says that you could count during the day as well. So what comes out of this is the following: that if a person, this is what I read in the Shulchan Aruch before, he says, "Shachach v'lo berech kol halayla, yizpor bayom v'lo bracha." Person didn't count at night; they should count during the day, during the daytime hours, without a bracha. And then, in such a case, we say that the following night you can come back and you can continue saying with the bracha. Right? Why? How does this work? It's like this: if we say, according to Tosfot, it was only Bahag who said that if you skip a day, you lose the ability to say a bracha. So therefore, according to Tosfot, the fact that I missed a day is irrelevant. I didn't say a bracha yesterday. I can say a bracha today. I can carry on counting, and that's fine. If I say according to Bahag is the one who says you have to count every day, but he says also you could count during the daytime hours if you didn't count at night. So therefore, I count during the day. Again, I don't say a bracha during the day in the afternoon out of deference to Bahag. Out of deference to the other opinion, that I can't say the bracha then. But mima nafshach, either way, I've continued to count, and therefore I can continue counting the following evening with a bracha. This is why in some places, even though the mitzvah is at night, sometimes the shul they'll announce in the morning after shachar. There's nothing wrong with it. But you announce in the morning, Hayom is whatever many days in the Omer, in case somebody forgot the night before. And then you hear it in the morning, you say it in the day, and then you can continue counting with the bracha until the end. Okay, we'll stop there. There's a
question. You go to the early Friday night.
Yes.
And they finished out, but it's before Shakir.
Yes.
Remember then, they go back to count.
You remember?
Go Shabbos. There's less year,
You remember then that you forgot to count the day before?
right?
Okay, that's an interesting question. We'll come to that tomorrow. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Omer, Sakadosh Baruch Hu, Zakot Yisrael, Lefekach Bar Lem Torah Mitzvot, Ne'emar Adonai Chafetz Zman Tekoy,